Invincible is known for its brutal, gory fights, but it's also filled with funny moments that everybody misses. I have rewatched every episode to discover and rank the funniest moments in the show, starting off with one of the most hilarious. In season 1, we are introduced to the titular hero in a surprisingly awkward and hilarious moment. Mark is sitting on the toilet reading a seance dog comment when his mom, Debbie, bursts in. He awkwardly tries to cover himself with a comic as Debbie reminds him that he used to change his diapers and that it's nothing she hasn't seen before, telling him to get over himself. Embarrassed, Mark tells her to get out.
I used to change your diapers, kid. There's nothing going on down there I haven't seen before.
Just get out!
Almost immediately afterward, Omni-Man returns home just in time for breakfast with Debbie. They share a passionate kiss right in front of Mark, who grumbles and threatens to get the spray bottle. Debbie and Nolan ignore his protests and continue to flirt right in front of the already embarrassed teenager in the room, who, it seems at this point, has reached his upper limit on what he can stomach. He goes to leave, but not before trying to chide his parents on the rules of boundaries and stating that they should never discuss sex in front of their child. Couldn't they wait until he left the house? For college?
Couldn't you at least wait until I leave the house? For college?
At least Mark finally gets a break in the next funny moment. We see Mark's first day on the job, although Nolan is unaware of it. He goes flying into Titan, a concrete-covered petty villain, knocking him over before awkwardly landing himself, hopping up, and claiming he meant to do that. The two fight physically and verbally. Titan asks who he is, and Mark admits he is still working on that.
Who the hell are you?
I guess I'm working on that.
Mark brainstorming new stage names throughout the fight is pretty funny. Next up, we get one of the funniest moments in the entire series. We're formally introduced to Rexplode, though it is anything but formal. He starts by teasing Mark about his victory in the fight against the Flaxons. Robot then attempts to introduce the team, beginning with an apology for Rex, who interrupts and declares himself unbelievably awesome. Robot quickly corrects this introduction to incorrigible, Eve adds, and rude. Rex fires back with one of the funniest lines.
Rexplode, he's
unbelievably awesome,
incorrigible,
And rude.
and bored of this.
The interaction is a rapid-fire showcase of Rexplode's personality. He is a relentless and he is unserious, and his cheeky banter is far from over, leading directly into the second encounter with the Flaxons, where our good pal Rex once again takes the lead with his one-liners. He becomes notably concerned that the Flaxons aren't rapidly aging. Duplicate attempts to brush it off by saying, "Who cares? Their bones still break." Rex retorts, "Yeah, and so do ours."
I bet their bones still break.
So do ours!
Before being whisked off to battle. He tries to blow up some fancy new laser turrets, but the Flaxons respond by reversing the trajectory of the projectiles back at Rex, causing him to squeal in panic. After the fight is over, Rex's comments on experiencing Invincible's impressive display are equally Rex. Points out that while it was amazing, it was also the scariest thing he's ever seen. And he insists that he should never aim that at him.
That was amazing, but also the scariest thing I've ever seen. Just don't ever point that at me.
The entire fight was filled to the brim with Rex's jokes, much like the final funny moment of the first episode. The last funny moment of the episode features the heroes preparing for one final battle against the Flaxons. Our buddy Rex mockingly asks Robot about the bad news he has for the team. Robot, being quite the somber contrast to Rex, suggests nuking the city due to the Flaxons' development as a threat. Rex jumps off the hover bike after telling Robot that he loves him, but sometimes he thinks Robot has a screw loose.
I will contact Cecil and suggest a nuclear response.
I love you, man, but sometimes you've got a screw loose.
Robot completely misses the joke and replies that he doesn't use screws, not getting the sarcasm. At the end of the fight, Invincible accidentally calls out to his dad while flying through a portal, leaving Rex stunned as he unexpectedly asks, "Omni-Man is your dad?"
Whoa. Omni-Man's your dad?
Rex is always a step behind, just like in the next funny moment. Another classic Rex moment. He attempts to insult Monster Girl by calling out, "Doesn't this group have an age requirement?" To which she fires back, "I don't know, you're here. Isn't there a dick size requirement?"
Look at her, she's adorable. But isn't there like an age requirement for this ride?
I don't know, you're here. Isn't there a dick size requirement?
Pretty firmly putting him in his place, in front of a whole lot of superheroes. Things get heated pretty quickly and they come to blows. Invincible steps in and whacks Monster Girl. Another hero cries out, "Invincible just hit that little girl," leading to an awkwardly hilarious moment. As things cool down, Monster Girl even apologizes for the dick joke, reassuring Rex, "I'm sure your junk is awesome." It's a pretty silly moment, punctuated by the fact that Monster Girl is an adult woman in a little girl's body. A bit of a more heated funny moment, the next one brings the tone back to being a bit silly thankfully. Later, I find William at Mark's house, getting him ready for a study date with Amber. With Mark's room being quite messy, William helpfully points out various things that needs to be cleaned up and hidden. Mark responds, "Being a geek is cool now, you dick." William clarifies that he's referring to the dirty clothes, the dishes, and the tissues. Mark awkwardly shoves the tissues into the bin.
I'm not talking about the comics, I'm talking about the dirty clothes, the dishes, the tissues.
Despite his powers, Mark is still just your typical teenager. When Debbie announces that Amber has arrived, all of the previously mentioned clutter flies out the window, followed shortly by the bin itself. Unfortunately, the study date is hilariously interrupted by Cecil, who teleported into Mark's room after Mark tries to ignore his calls. Mark is left feeling flustered and bewildered. Cecil's no-nonsense attitude does nothing to calm Mark's nerves, as he awkwardly stumbles through an excuse to leave the date early. This leads almost directly to the next funny moment that nobody talks about. Mark's next encounter is none other than Doc Seismic. Invincible jokes about how lacking Doc Seismic's one-liners are, before delivering an absolute whopper of a dad joke himself.
I'm still working on my one-liners, but that one is really bad.
While putting a head back on Mount Rushmore, he quips, "Now that's how you get ahead in life." It's truly cringeworthy. Later, Mark and Eve discuss their plan of attack. Eve states that they need to take out the gloves that give Seismic his gravity powers. Mark points out that gloves have fingers and that these are more like bracelets, laughingly calling out to Seismic that he's wearing earthquake bracelets.
We need to take out his gloves.
Those aren't gloves. Gloves have fingers. They're more, earthquake bracelets.
During the fight, Seismic tries to convince Eve to join him, pointing out how her outfit panders to gender roles. Eve, however, counters that she designed the suit herself and questions his qualifications. In a hilarious comeback, Seismic lifts his credentials, claiming an undergraduate degree in sociology, women's studies, and a minor in African dance.
I designed my own costume, and I thought your doctorate was in seismology.
Undergrad in sociology and women's studies, I had a minor in African dance.
Proving he certainly knows his stuff. As the fight comes to a close, Eve is holding Doc Seismic by the hand, trying to pull him up from the edge. He chuckles and jokes that he should have spent more time working on his jetpack before falling to what appears to be his demise.
Ah, God damn it. I should have spent more time working on the jetpack!
Mark has to rush home quickly for the next funny moment. A surprisingly comedic interaction between Omni-Man and Invincible. Nolan tries to give Mark some heroic advice, but Mark is less than interested, interjecting with the occasional or As their conversation wraps up, Mark points out that Nolan has a piece of kaiju stuck to his back, which Nolan awkwardly struggles to remove for a moment.
That's the tricky part of the job, balancing what you want to do with what you need to do.
Right. Dad, you got a little...
The time-constrained Mark is less than concerned with his father's advice and definitely more worried about his date, who he kind of ditched to go be a hero. The same kaiju doesn't seem to be dead and gives Donald a little jump scare. After Nolan successfully removes the piece stuck to him, he throws it down on the kitchen counter and suggests to Debbie calamari for dinner, implying that it's considered a delicacy and an aphrodisiac. To this, Debbie remarks, "Like you need it." Luckily, poor Mark wasn't around to witness their loving exchange. At least the next funny moment doesn't have any mushy parent flirting. This moment comes from the Mahler twins, as they look forward to their Thursday night dinner in prison, chicken pot pie. One of the Mahlers, thanks to a mysterious interloper, manages to grab the guard's arm. He apologizes to Pete, the guard, before knocking him out cold. Then awkwardly tried to slap his hand to Bioscanner. The hand slaps about a few times before finally making its mark. The Mahler is disappointed that he's breaking out on chicken pot pie night, before teasing the other Mahler, who is seriously enjoying his pie, about being the clone.
Damn, chicken pot pie night. How? Obvious, as the original article undiluted by the cloning process that created you. Oh.
At least one of them got to enjoy his dinner, finally coming back to our favorite jokester of the series. As the new Guardians of the Globe enter their new headquarters, the original Guardians' lair, Rex, seemingly fed up with Black Samson's reminiscing, decides to poke the bear. Samson asks, "You'll do what exactly?" Without skipping a beat, Rex responds, "I don't know, probably explode something." "Oh, maybe you're nuts."
You'll do what exactly?
I don't know. Probably explode something. Ooh, maybe you're nuts.
Always quick on the draw, Rex keeps the banter going. Meanwhile, Monster Girl tries to ensure that she and Rex are on good terms. This leads them to share their thoughts about how the other heroes can be total jerks. Huge ones. Robot attempts to put Rex in his place, clearly hinting that he should stay away from Monster Girl. Once the tension settles, Robot gives Rex a playful slap on the shoulder, causing Rex to yelp like a wuss. In a rare moment, Robot cracks a joke of his own saying, "Sorry, I forgot how soft you humans are."
Ow! What the hell? Ugh!
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have pinched a nerve. I forget how soft humans are.
Back to someone missing out on food for our next moment. It seems just before Mark's arrival on Mars, he is resting on the rocket. He takes out a sandwich he packed and tries to take a bite, but the sandwich shatters into tiny pieces, leaving Mark frustrated. Shortly after they arrive on Mars, Mark loses the astronauts he was sent to protect. Following their tracks, he discovered a sealed cave. He is quickly attached by small tentacle creatures, but he manages to fend them off. Bewildered by the creatures yet determined to press on, he continues forward. The Martians eventually reveal themselves, accompanied by another tentacle creature. Mark tells the Martians to keep their dogs on a leash.
You guys need to keep your dogs on a leash. Assume those are like Martian dogs or something?
A rather silly remark given the creature's true insidious nature. As the astronauts try to escape Mars, they attempt to perform pre-flight checks while under attacks from the Martians. After the windshield is smashed, the captain throws up his hands in frustration, exclaiming, "Fuck this!" and decides to rush the takeoff. They don't take off quickly enough, and Mark is forced to try to lift the shuttle himself while the Martians continue to bombard him with projectiles. He yelps as the bolts hit him. They sting, but they do not cause any real harm. In a hilarious twist, after successfully getting the astronauts into orbit, he decides to fly back down to Mars to grab a souvenir. Right in front of the bewildered Martians, he quips, "No hard feelings, right?" before taking off again.
No hard feelings, right?
Towards the end of the episode, Mark has finally returned to Earth. As he approaches his home, he begins to hear some strange noises. Though the lights are off, he can hear muffled grunts and the sound of objects being broken. Preparing for the worst, Mark rushes in and throws open the door. We hear a zipper being pulled up as the scene cuts to Nolan and Debbie sitting on the couch. Nolan awkwardly pushes a lamp back into place and says, "Oh, hey, you're back early." The silence in that moment is deafening as Mark begins to realize what has been happening. To break the tension, Nolan awkwardly remarks, "Wow." The silence continues until Debbie tries to intervene, asking, "Oh, how was Mars?" Mark clearly wanted to end the moment, responds, clearly less eventful than whatever was going on here, before fleeing up the stairs. Mark is yet again exposed unwillingly to his parents' loving shenanigans. Thankfully, his next interaction with his dad is without the exposure. Later on, Mark is doing some additional hero training with Omni-Man. A low-level villain is dangling upside down in Mark's grip. Omni-Man is trying to teach Mark how to intimidate the villain by making him think he will drop him. Mark hesitantly responds, "I don't know, that seems kinda mean." The villain, hearing their conversation, interjects uselessly to express his concern. Without hesitation, Omni-Man grabs the villain and casually drops him. Mark becomes worried and asks, "Are you going to catch him?" Omni-Man replies, "Yes," but after a slight pause adds, "In a second."
Okay, but you're gonna catch him, right?
Yeah, in a second.
Throughout this, the villain's screams become fainter and fainter, adding to the hilarity of the situation. Just a couple of scenes later, Mark is fending off a villain's attack while casually texting Amber. The poor villain proves to be utterly ineffective against him. Invincible doesn't even seem to be paying attention to the guy. The villain tries punching, throwing objects, and even hurling a heavy piece of metal that bends over Invincible's head. Slightly annoyed, Mark gently pushes the metal away before returning to his next conversation with Amber. Despite the ongoing attacks, he remains only mildly irritated by the entire situation as his texting comes to an end. The next funny moment is without any hero, surprisingly. Episode 6 begins with a comedic scene featuring a drunken frat bro hiding in the bushes on a college campus. He stumbles out towards a group of women and introduces himself. Clearly frightened, the woman inquired why he was hiding in the bushes. He responds with a laugh, "I wasn't hiding in the bushes, I was drinking in the bushes." He continues his drunken introduction by singing, "I'm motherfucking Doug Cheston," before taking a swig from his drink and burping loudly.
Sup, ladies?
Scared us, you creep. Why were you hiding in the bushes? Oh my god.
I wasn't hiding in the bushes. I was drinking in the bushes. But that's not important. What's important? That I'm motherfucking Doug Cheston.
Clumsily, he shares his father's accomplishments, then proceeds to preposition the woman, who promptly reject him. Back to a moment with our hero at its center. Much later in the episode, after a shocking revelation about Invincible, William realizes that Mark is invincible. He excitedly bombards Mark with questions, asking him repeatedly to take him flying. William jokingly threatens to tell everyone Mark's secret identity if he doesn't comply. Mark grabs William by the shirt, appearing to threaten him, but instead decides to take him on a quick flight before returning him to his spot on the couch.
But holy shit, you're invincible! And you never told me. Now take me flying or I'm gonna tell everyone you're invincible. There, okay?
However, William, still not satisfied, asks to try on the suit. At this point, it's clear that the only thing being tried here is Mark's patience. Thankfully, he gets a break for a few scenes, and our next few funny moments returns to Rex. In episode 7, we find ourselves at the official welcome back party for Monster Girl. After surviving her encounter with Battle Beast, Rex is clearly missing Monster Girl and is excited to start the festivities. He heads straight for the beer fridge, which is now seemingly filled with cartons of milk that have been gratified with pictures of Monster Girl. Proud of his accomplishment, Rex takes a swig, having replaced all the milk in the cartons with beer. Shrinking Ray dares, guess how long it took him to do that. To which Duplicate adds, and how much milk he wasted. Rex casually adds, I poured it all down the drain.
We're the guardians of the globe, baby. If we can die at any time, we can drink at any time. I put your picture on the side.
Haha, cute, but I'm lactose intolerant.
Do you know me at all? I filled them with beer. You're welcome.
Guess how long it took him to do that? And how much milk he wasted.
I poured it all down the drain.
Remarkably, Rex even manages to get a laugh from Black Samson, of all people. His rugged charm seems to finally be warming the team up to him. Even siding with him in the next funny moment on our list, a pretty startling funny moment comes at the hands of Robot, who shows up at the Guardians' headquarters as a younger perfect clone of Rexplode himself, who is incredibly quick to ask what we were all thinking, what the fuck? Rex is less than amused and severely aggravated throughout the encounter, asking, why the fuck do you look like me? How the fuck do you look like me?
Why the fuck do you look like me? How the fuck do you look like me?
Rex always brings levity, even in the heavier moments. Robot, or Rudy, explains that he took Rex's DNA to escape his mechanical tomb. Rex counters with, you are ruining my childhood, which is hard because it already sucked. Rudy admits he chose his Rex DNA in a bid to get Monster Girl to like him, which almost sends Rex over the edge. He barely even knows what to say, but manages to get out, Robot, will you please stop fucking me up? Humor is ever being Rex's coping mechanism. I don't think I need to dive into why the season 1 finale lacks moments that could be considered funny. So let's move on to season 2, which thankfully brings back some lighter tones despite the previous season ending on a somber note. The first funny moment of the season begins with the reintroduction of the Immortal. Cecil is busy grilling the team for their failures, while Rex makes his usual quips. When Cecil suddenly announces, I'm instituting a change, the Immortal floats down heroically right beside him. Rex laughs and quickly points out how choreographed the entire entrance was, highlighting how ridiculous it actually seems.
Nice entrance! Was he waiting for his cue? Just over there or something? I feel like a lot of preparation went into it.
It's amusing to consider how much time Cecil and the Immortal must have spent rehearsing what would otherwise be a fairly serious moment. Immediately afterward, we are introduced to another hero, Bulletproof, who arrives right on cue. Rex immediately starts teasing the new member, attempting to bring him down a peg. However, Bulletproof has jokes of his own, pointing out the absurd childishness of Rex's hero name. As a result, Rex deflates like a balloon with a hole in it, losing all of his machismo and charisma. After a fair amount of comedy from Rex, another familiar character returns to the limelight in our next funny moment. Another incident involving Doc Seismic. Almost any interaction with him is less than completely serious. He stands atop the Washington Monument, crying out about the stolen ores and minerals used to construct it. Invincible floats down and asks what the deal is with the Doctor and historically monuments, before mistakenly getting his name wrong. Seismic corrects him, saying, it's Doctor I never officially taught.
What is it with you and historical monuments? Professor Seismic, right?
Doc Seismic.
They end the interaction with Seismic expressing his apparent disdain for buildings made of wood. The Doctor also appears to have finished the jetpack he previously mentioned. Moving on from the good Doctor, we cut to an astronaut who has been acting rather strangely since the incident on Mars. He stumbles around, uses phrases like urination chamber, and generally comes off as a bit goofy. It turns out that this man is actually a Martian impersonating an astronaut. A governor enters the bathroom to give him a serious pep talk, but the Martian continues to try to act normal in the silliest of ways. During the conversation, he takes more than a handful of paper towels. The governor notices this behavior, and as he is about to suspend him for not being himself, the Martian drops to the ground and begs not to be executed.
Quite frankly, Livingston, this is the U.S. Space Administration, not therapy.
Please don't kill me!
What?
Spare me!
This definitely must have been quite the day for the governor. Confused, the governor brushes it off and decides to suspend the Martian from work for the time being. This is definitely not the last time we see our Martian friend acting silly. Next up, I found another funny moment from Invincible himself, where Mark finds himself on the receiving end of a particularly bad deal. See, his father had killed the original king of Atlantis in the previous season, and now the consequences are coming to light. According to the Atlantean law, the responsibility for the crime falls to the next of kin if the perpetrator is absent. Unfortunately for Mark, this means he's chosen to take on the nuptial consequences. Instead of facing an outright battle, the situation is a bit more delicate. Mark is informed by Cecil that he must carry the widowed queen of Atlantis, a literal fish woman. Mark protests, "I can't marry a fish, I have a girlfriend," alluding to the likely consummation of the marriage. It doesn't end there for poor Mark. When he is brought before the Queen of Atlantis, it becomes clear that Cecil's information is outdated. As Mark awkwardly stumbles through the reasons for not wanting to marry her, she interrupts him with laughter, informing him that they've abolished that barbaric custom. She doesn't need a king. Instead, she wants Mark to face justice through trial by combat. They call for the Depth Dweller, which initially appears to be a small seahorse creature. Mark laughs and approaches it jokingly, asking if he can leave now. However, it turns out that what he thought was the Depth Dweller was merely an antenna on the head of a much larger creature. The real Depth Dweller, which is a massive underwater kaiju. Hey, at least he didn't have to marry a fish. Things move to a far less dire circumstance in the next funny moment on our list. In episode 3, we see Mark and William moving into their college dorm. William teases Mark about his choice of decor, to which Mark jokingly replies that his decor might make William look better by comparison. William moves on to explain the age-old sock system when they are interrupted by a visitor at the doorway who asks about the items in the hallway. William is exasperated when he discovers that the items are actually Mark's toys, which Mark nerdily corrects him by saying they are collectibles. Things are going a lot smoother for Mark at least, but here's another moment by the newly minted Martian. Shapesmith enters the gym just as Rex and Kate are having a serious conversation about their past relationship. He approaches them and innocently requests, "I'd like to run while remaining in a stationary location," clearly referring to the treadmill. His comment breaks the tension in the room. Rex, taken aback, basically shouts, "Where are you from? For real, where are you from?" Shapesmith doesn't respond and instead heads over to the treadmill. He proceeds to get on it backwards and awkwardly runs in place, even though the machine isn't turned on.
"I'd like to run while remaining in a stationary location. Is that cool beans?"
Where are you from? For real, where are you from?
Go ahead, Shapesmith.
"I'll just be over there, in a stationary location."
Clearly not the chameleon socially, despite his shape-shifting powers. Back to another moment from Mark. Mark and William are adjusting to college life. Their conversation takes a serious turn when there's a knock on the door. William jokingly suggests that it's Amber coming back for some adult time with Mark. However, upon opening the door, they hear someone ask for Mark. William's eyes widen in surprise and he quickly closes the door. He walks back to his bed, wraps himself up in a blanket and says, "It's for you." Surprisingly, it turns out to be Seance Dog from the comic books. Later, they find out it's just a Thraxon in disguise, but William certainly got a good scare. I'll be honest, episode 4 didn't give me much to laugh at. So, onwards to episode 5. Rudy and the Monster Girl seem to be experiencing a small argument after their first date. Rex, trying to lighten up the mood, jumps in with, "Oh no, is the 8th grade prom cancelled?" Just then, Cecil teleports right next to him, scaring Rex so much that he screams like a coward.
Oh no, is 8th grade prom canceled? Don't tell me. Ah! Motherfucker!
Unfortunately, he is absent from our next funny moment, but Shapesmith is back once again. As the Guardians intercept a Martian vessel en route to Earth, we are treated to another memorable moment with the Shapesmith. They approach the vessel, and Shapesmith humorously stumbles through the process of gathering information, saying, "Ah yes, my old chums. They may not be enthusiastic to see me." He warns that the warship is likely to fire missiles on sight and seems to get a bit too excited when he spots the missiles, which he had just mentioned, headed straight for their ship. In keeping with the space theme, our next funny moment catches up with Alan the alien, is brazenly confronted by the Immortal. Alan tries to placate the raging hero until Invincible arrives. He must act as an intermediary between the two since the brain implant doesn't work as a three-way communicator.
This is gonna be tricky. Whoa, hey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just looking for Invincible. Invincible! Omni-Man sent you! No! Stop! Invincible! What the hell is going on? I don't know. I came here looking for you, and then suddenly this douchebag attacked me.
Alan's my friend. He's a good guy.
Oh, my thing only works between me and someone else, not between two others.
Although he's not entirely forthcoming with a literal interpretation of Mark's words. To bridge the gap, Alan interprets Mark's wishes to the Immortal in a somewhat silly manner by insulting the Immortal's beard and claiming that he's basically the king of space. After that interaction, Alan accompanies Mark to Earth. Mark puts a sock on the door for some privacy. Alan chuckles and says, "A sock on the door means somebody's having sex." Mark confirms that it means the same thing on Earth. Funny how such a simple custom can spread across like stars. He sits on Mark's bed and, due to his newly improved build, accidentally breaks it. They discuss what happened to Nolan. Alan invites Mark to Talos Korea, but Mark immediately shoots down the idea. Mark is a little worried they'd have to fight each other, but Alan casually states that he doesn't fight friends because if he won, he'd feel bad. It's a vicious cycle, really. Breaking the cycle and moving on to what may be one of the cleverest, funny moments in the entire show so far, we get a hilarious and meta commentary on animated TV shows. As we know, Invincible has faced delays in budget issues, and the showrunners decided to directly address this in a comedic bit that also references the original comic. They highlighted some clever animation shortcuts, such as keeping characters' mouths out of frame to avoid animating them, or cutting to the back of someone's head for the same reason. They also made a joke about using a wide shot of a crowd that appears animated but is actually just a static image. Additionally, they mention how the quality of still images can be improved to make the show look different. The funniest part is that as they explain these tricks, everything they describe is humorously illustrated on screen in a tongue-in-cheek manner. It's good to see the animators and showrunners can laugh about it all too, something the star of the next funny moment knows all about. Back to Rex, who is returning to the battlefield after a near-death incident. He is now facing off against a humanoid octopus monster. Rex humorously gives himself a silly pep talk to hype himself up for the upcoming fight. The octopus man tries to make a quip, but his broken English catches Rex off guard. It's really bad. Rex laughs and teases the villain for his limited vocabulary, joking about how he respects the fact that the octopus has learned to speak English.
Do take more than dirt at hurt octobars.
Wait, what? Oh no. Why didn't you say something stupid sooner?
Throughout the fight, Rex continues with his classic banter, proving that even being shot in the head can't dampen his spirits. And yes, there are even a few goofy moments in the absolutely brutal Season 2 finale. Mark finds himself in a meeting with someone who seems to be a Spider-Man knockoff. He accuses his figure to trying to harm an elderly man, aka Professor Octavius. Initially, Mark isn't entirely convinced that this Spider-Man imitation is a hero. However, his doubts vanish when he is suddenly grabbed by a tentacle and hoisted into the sky. Just a small moment of levity in an otherwise brutal episode. Later, we see him conversing with the Caped Crusader himself. Mark critiques the laziness of Batman's naming convention, pointing out that he is just a man who dresses like a bat. We cut away from Mark's struggles. This next scene follows two women exploring a tomb, and it's low-key hilarious. One of them is searching for their father, whom they find resting in a crypt, dead. Suddenly, the tomb begins to rumble, and a mummy spirit emerges before them, dramatically introducing himself as Kahor. However, he soon realizes that both newcomers are women and comments that his host must be male. One of the women points out that this is sexist.
Who will succumb to my influence? Wait, you're both female?
And?
I must inhabit a living male host to escape the curse of this tomb.
That's sexist.
Creating a lighthearted moment in an otherwise serious episode, and bringing an end to the funniest moment of Season 2, but there's still plenty more to come. Before we get into Season 3, let's take a quick look at the funniest moments of the Adam Eve special. In this episode, Adam Eve is learning to use her powers for the first time and encounters two hoodlums attempting to abduct some dogs. She intervenes, and one of them says, "Dude, I think that's a Powerpuff Girl." In response, she turns their mask into solid metal. The result is hilarious as they fumble around and bump into each other, with one of them dragging his heavy head behind the van.
Hey.
Ah, what the hell?
I think it's a Powerpuff Girl.
Come on, we need to get the rest.
I can do that. Imagine what I can do to those dumb masks you're wearing.
Her next funny moment is at the hands of another unfortunate villain, who is robbing a jewelry store? She quips, "Nice soul patch, bro." It makes your face extra punchable. He laughs and responds, "The name's Kill Cannon, not gets beat up by little girls Cannon." Quick on her feet, Eve retorts, "Then you'll have to go down to City Hall and get it changed." Even at a young age, she delivers some great one-liners. Finally, let's take a look at the funniest moments from Season 3. Although much of this season has a somber tone, there are still plenty of scenes that make us chuckle. One standout moment involves Rex and Mark. Rex teams up with Mark for some hero business, and he mentioned that he has gone back 3 times to get his new hand adjusted. "Look, I'm trying to give you the finger right now," Rex says while holding up his fist. Mark quickly interjects, "Ooh, that's his favorite finger." Rex then echoes, It's my favorite finger.
We bought you a new hand, Rex. That wasn't cheap.
And this is the third time I've been back trying to get it adjusted. Look, I'm trying to give you the finger right now, and I can't.
Oh man, that's your favorite finger.
It's my favorite finger.
It's his favorite finger, Cecil. Can we do something about that?
Showing us that the two have definitely come a long way as buddies. Despite being dejected, Rex is sarcastically thrilled when Mark offers to bring him along on a mission to blow things up. The shenanigans with our two bros continue when later, they find themselves confronting two strangers attempting to steal the Declaration of Independence. Rex makes a grand entrance, being carried by Invincible, and calls out, "Hey dickheads! Boy, did you pick the wrong day to steal a timeless piece of American history?" Rex and Invincible then fight the two would-be thieves while engaging in casual conversation. The situation is quite amusing, as these two seem pretty desperate, but Mark and Rex are just catching up. As Mark battles one of the villains, he realizes that he is just a normal dude, confirming this when the so-called villain strikes him a few times with no effort. Finally, some good comedy with probably the two funniest characters in the show, but it doesn't stop there. Later, we see Rex, post-shower, muttering and grumbling about the hot water system. He then stumbles upon a gaping hole in the Guardians HQ, hitting us with another what the fuck moment.
Cecil spends $10 gajillion on Mark's fitness classes, but can't fix our goddamn. Oh! What the fuck is this?
Sadly, I have to leave Rex behind as the scene changes. In a later part of the episode, we see Alan the alien has finally caught up with Nolan. He is flattered by Nolan's compliments. Meanwhile, the Viltrumite subordinates try to execute Alan. He stutters through a half-hearted speech before their attempt, but it turns out that the laser they use is less effective against our now improved alien friend.
Besides, like you said, I am incredibly ripped now. It would take a pretty big laser to do me in. Guys, okay, 1 second. Can we just talk about this before we, So that sucked, but I was right.
Alan manages to laugh off the execution attempts as they fail hilariously. And now we get to return to our boy Rex. In the next episode, we catch up once again with Rex. While the rest of the team grumbles about losing to Doc Seismic of all people, he stands shirtless with beers in hand, saying they need a drink after that defeat. Monster Girl quips, "Are you going to add a shirt to those pants?" Just as Rex is about to deliver what promises to be a devastating comeback, he cuts himself off. It seems our hilarious little caterpillar is growing into a mature butterfly. But not quite yet, it seems. In the very next episode, the now newly reformed team is back at their old headquarters. When shrinking Ray says the place is bigger than I thought, Rex, seemingly unable to hold back, immediately interjects, "That's what she said," before awkwardly trying to roll it back as his metamorphosis continues. He offers to give Ray the tour so she can choose a new bedroom first. He accidentally takes her to his old room, stating, "Wow, this is embarrassing." His room is filled with all of the old typical teenager stuff, and is a big old mess. Beer cans and silly posters all over the wall. After they come out, the team discusses how the naming convention of Teen Team no longer fits. Rex helpfully offers a few bangers like Rex and the Splosions, Rex and his exes, and finally, Rexplode and a bunch of other people whose names you don't really need to know. He's definitely got a long way to go before he's a fully reformed douchebag. But he gets another chance to shine in yet another moment in episode 4, beginning with Rex right away, as he is out shopping for a normal dinner with shrinking Ray. He reminisces about stealing a robot's credit card number and living off black coffee, pizza, and ramen, even bragging that he almost got scurvy once. Ray points out that he shouldn't be proud of that fact, to which he replies, "Ah, rock and roll lifestyle." They then try to figure out whether a green vegetable is a cucumber or a zucchini. Rex is shocked to learn that Ray seems to know how to cook and tries to convince her to use the robot's credit card again. Thankfully, Ray's a better person than that, much like the next person to have their funny moment. Back to Alan the alien and Nolan, still aboard the Viltrumite prison ship. Their friendship seems to be blossoming, at least from Alan's perspective. The Viltrumite subordinates continuously attempt to execute him, but each attempt has no apparent effect. In fact, it becomes increasingly silly as the guards suffer more than he does with each failed execution. Eventually, they decide to suspend their attempts indefinitely. Upon returning his cell, Alan wryly remarks, "These guys are really bad at their jobs." Eventually, Alan is forced to escape to save Nolan. The escape is quite hilarious, despite the serious nature of Nolan's impending execution. Alan clumsily navigates his way around the ship. When the guards spot him, they open fire, which only stings him slightly and makes him yelp comically. The escape ends in space, where Ellen wants to give Nolan a high five to celebrate their victory. However, he's covered in gore, so he hesitates and says, "I kind of want to high five you because we won, but that was super gross, so it feels inappropriate." Meanwhile, we see Battle Beast floating off with the last remaining Viltrumite, drifting into deep space. Back to Earth for the next funny moment on the list, the episode concludes with Mark and Eve enjoying some quality time together at Mark's place. They seem to be making a bit too much noise as Debbie attempts to come inside. Mark pretends to be asleep and the couple playfully teases each other. Just as Debbie almost hears them again, she asks, "What was that?"
Mark?
Hey, Mom. What's up?
I thought I heard something. Why is your door locked?
I'm not dressed.
Okay, well, have a good night.
Good night.
Is she gone? What was that?
Nothing, Mom.
This leaves Mark and Eve suppressing their embarrassed laughter. Wasn't Mark complaining about his parents' lovey-dovishness earlier in the series? The joke carries over into the next episode. As Mark comes down for breakfast, Eve pretends to come to the front door. Eve hilariously plays along until Oliver, not understanding the joke, innocently asks, "Why did you fly out of Mark's window if you were just going to come back?" He is abruptly cut off by a sharp kick from Mark. Debbie smiles knowingly as they sit down for breakfast. Debbie teases Mark saying, "So, did you have a good night's sleep?" Oliver jumps in again saying, "He wasn't sleeping. He and Eve had a sleepover." Once more, he is stopped by another swift kick from Mark. Oliver continues anyway, adding, "They were making too much noise playing and woke me up." Poor Mark, embarrassed, tries to stutter through a half-hearted explanation while he and Oliver continue to kick each other under the table.
Did you get a good night's sleep?
Mark wasn't sleeping. He and Eve had a sleepover.
Oliver, what the hell?
Ow! Stop kicking me! They made too much noise playing and woke me up.
We were watching, a movie. I didn't know it was gonna be that loud. Ow!
Ow! These pancakes are amazing, Mrs. Grayson. Are they buttermilk?
Meanwhile, Eve nervously babbles about the pancakes. Eventually, breakfast comes to an end. Oliver surely didn't know what he was doing, right? But the Oliver antics don't stop there. After a late night outing to skate with some friends, Oliver encounters a group of bullies. They insult him, and it seems he is about to retaliate. Instead, he quickly pulls down their pants at super speed, leaving all of his friends in fits of laughter. The episode concludes with some of Debbie's signature wisdom. She tells Mark that she is aware that they are having sex, which leaves him flabbergasted and embarrassed. In a humorous attempt to escape the awkward situation, he quickly finishes helping her clean up so he can leave as soon as possible. Coming up towards the end of the funniest moments now, with just 2 more left. In the next episode, we see Oliver engaged in some training under Mark's supervision. He is fighting a villain known as the Elephant Man, who is terrorizing a fast food joint in the name of veganism. Oliver approaches the situation casually and accidentally reveals that it's part of his training. Offended, the villain retorts, "I'm not your training dummy."
So can you...
Where'd you even find this guy?
Hey, careful! You gotta look out for other people.
I did. He didn't hit anyone.
Wait, are you just using me as a... I'm not your training dummy!
Sure you are.
Unfortunately for him, the facts clearly indicate that he most certainly is. The same can't be said about the next villain encounter, and the final funny moment in the show to date. Of course, I have included a moment from Shapesmith, who is awkwardly trying to relate to Powerplex. Powerplex is somber about his plans, but Shapesmith makes it nearly impossible to maintain that mood. He rambles through an awkward introduction after not being recognized, even transforming into a mock version of Invincible in an attempt to lighten the mood, which fails miserably. Shapesmith always brings the comedic gold. That wraps up our look at the funniest moments in Invincible. The last 2 episodes of Season 3 are packed with non-stop action and brutal fights. While there may be a few small humorous moments worth mentioning, we'll leave it to you to add those in the comments.